we have Pastor Rodriguez, who is my pastor. He's also on the board for Southern Christian Writers, and he is very capable of speaking about the subject he will be speaking about today, because he's also a professional counselor and the president of Therapon.
Yes.
President of Therapon, so which teaches counseling. So, David, it's all yours. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us today.
All right. Thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. And thank you guys for signing in. And when Tina first asked me to come and share, I thought about it and I said, I'm the new kid on the block here. I've just written one book, and I'm not going to be able to tell you guys a lot about writing, things like that. So I suggested to Tina that we might want to take a different track, and she approved it. I want to do something I have a lot more experience with, and that's personality profiles. Maybe some of you have already taken a personality profile and you're familiar with it. I'm a certified behavioral analyst with the with the Institute of Motivational Living, and they administer and control the DISC profiles, DISC. So that's what I want to share with you, because our temperaments, our personality styles affect our writing, as we all know. And so I can't administer the profiles to you. I wish I could. But what I'm going to do is give you the characteristics of the 4 different personality types, and that'll kind of give you an idea of where you fit on the spectrum. And then we'll finish out by giving some recommendations for your writing based on your personality types. Now, people are different. Have you noticed that? Yeah, but they're predictably different. And it was noticed long ago that people fall into certain categories. There's some people who are bold and aggressive. Other people are fearful and shy. Some people like to talk a lot. Some people are very quiet. Some people seem to be happy a lot. Some people seem to be sad. So the ancient Greek philosophers began to develop some theories about this. Empedocles thought that our personalities were affected by the external elements, earth, wind, fire, and water. A little bit later, Hippocrates said, no, it's internal bodily fluids. And this is what gives us the choleric, phlegmatic, the melancholy, and the sanguine, those 4 things. But in 1926, William Marston wrote a book called The Emotions of Normal People. And he developed a DISC model, DISC, for those 4 groups of people. And that's what I want to share with you now. Our temperaments, and this is not a psychological evaluation. Nobody's going to be evaluating you. Our temperaments are determined by basically 3 things. Our childhood experience, very important. Role models, that is what we observe in other people. And then to a certain degree, genetics. Some people are genetically predisposed to be aggressive or passionate, things like that. So I want to go ahead and share this information with you. Tina, can you let me put this up on the screen now?
Some of you you should be able to do it.
All right, we'll start with the D. We'll try to do this quickly. The D is dominant, direct, demanding, the movers and the shakers. It stands for active, positive movement in an antagonistic environment. The Ds are troubleshooters. The Ds are 3% of the population. They are active, task-oriented. Now, the fact that they're 3% of the population was a great relief to me, because I'm a D, and I'd always thought that if people knew what I knew, they would do what I would do. And I got fooled every time. The D is active, task-oriented, and they have high expectations of others, but low expectations of themselves. In other words, the D will be harder on you than they are on themselves. And they're most likely to say, do as I do, do as I say, don't do as I do. So let's scroll down a little bit. The D has high ego strength. They seek authority. It seems like there's more than 3% of us because we gravitate toward positions of power. Impatient, always in a hurry. A D is always in a hurry to be somewhere else. They're very impatient. The greatest fear of the D, and we're going to have the greatest fear of all personality types, is the fear of being taken advantage of. And man, when I was getting certified and Jerry Carlin said, the greatest fear of the D, I'm sitting there thinking, I ain't scared of nothing. And when she said this, I almost fell out of my chair. We're always looking to see that somebody doesn't take advantage of us. Now, there may be a little bit of projection going on there because the D's are the ones who are most likely to take advantage of others. Not me, but the other D's will do that. We desire change, does many things at once. I'm scared to tell you how many business cards I have. And must be confronted, responds to direct communication. The D doesn't mind you getting right up in their face because now you're right where they want you. And you say it, we say, direct communication. D's want straight answers to straight questions. So when we say, baby, where'd you get that new dress? Oh, I've been having it.
You may go ask them.
Baby, how much did you spend at the store? Oh, I just bought a few things. No. Answer the question that we ask. They're decisive, independent, dominant, direct, dynamic, and strong-willed. Okay, let's go down now. And what we're going to do to the next page is we're going to give you the strengths and weaknesses. Keep going. Good. In three different, that's good, 3 different areas. General characteristics, relational characteristics, and occupational characteristics. Now, as we go through these things, I'm going to go through them quickly. Faces are going to come into your mind. And I promise you this, if you're not a D, you have worked for a D at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, general characteristics, the D. Strong-willed, productive, decisive, practical, visionary, courageous, optimistic, a born leader, compulsive need for change. If you hire a D and you're taking them around the shop and you say, oh, now over here we do this, that D's likely to say, well, have you ever thought about doing it this way? How about this next one? Must correct wrongs. And one thing I've learned, and you probably have too, people don't like to be told that they're wrong.
Amen.
Now, when you're a pastor, you have to be careful about that sort of thing. But there's something in a D. If it's wrong, they're going to let you know. And look, we'll run people off. We'll alienate people, and you don't want to do that as a pastor. But it's like we even correct people's grammar. Oh, he don't care about that. Oh, he do not care about that. Then what do he care about?
He does not care about that.
They're not easily discouraged. There should be a D on the end of that word. So I have to find out who typeset that and tell them that they're wrong. That's not easily discouraged. Independent and self-sufficient and resolute. Now, we've got some weaknesses. So you want to skip these weaknesses? You want to hear about them? All right.
We can later.
We can hear about them. There's no such thing as the best personality type. Each one has strengths and weaknesses. It's a question of which one is appropriate for the given moment. Just like the gifts of the Spirit, the non-gifts of the Spirit. Which is the best one? Well, which one do you need? If you have a terminal cancer, you don't need somebody to talk in tongues. You need somebody with the gift of healing. So let's look at these weaknesses. It doesn't mean that every D has these, but that's the tendency. If you backslide, that's where you're going. They're unsympathetic and cold, insensitive and inconsiderate, cruel and sarcastic. Yeah, right, me sarcastic. Unforgiving, self-sufficient and domineering. A face is coming into your mind, yeah. Argumentative and impatient. Opinionated and prejudiced, proud, crafty, can't relax, and look, won't give up when losing. My hobby is playing tournament chess. I don't go to the tournaments too much anymore, but I play on the internet, and the games are rated instantly. And my favorite time control is 1 minute chess. You have 1 minute to play the whole game, and the games are rated. So I'll hook up with somebody at night, and I swear it must be a teenager on speed. He'll beat me 20 games in a row, and I keep rematching him. And then when I win that 21st game, now, who's the man? We're going to show you you're not going to beat us. They're not complimentary or emotional. In fact, D's are kind of put off by emotionality, and they're impetuous. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit. In a relationship with the D, can we scroll down a little?
Sure.
There we go. If you're in a relationship with a D, you're married to a D. If you're an S, you're probably married a D. The good news is this: they exert sound leadership, they establish goals, they motivate the family to action, they know the right answer, they organize the household, has little need for friends. It's not that they don't have friends, but they don't feel that same need. They can go for a year without talking to their sister and not know about it until they come to the reunion and, you haven't talked to me since last year. They will work for group activity, and they excel in emergencies. If you have to be rushed to the hospital, you want a D to do it. They already know how to speed. And there's something about a crisis, they just get moving. It doesn't intimidate them. They get moving. I was at a Paula White concert years ago in Baton Rouge. Therapon had a booth out there, and she was speaking. It was about half filled, big old auditorium. But some nut had climbed way up in the back, in the balcony, in the empty section. And while she's preaching, he started screaming, "Paula White, repent!" And she looked up at him. Now, I got my little exhibitors tag on there, but I don't have anything to do with this meeting. I found myself jumping over the rail and walking toward this guy up in the back. And by the time some other guys had gone to get him, 3 guys in green blazers from the Metroplex had gone to get him. And we met him, the 3 guys and this nut, and I was there, and we met right where there was a down ramp. So I said to him, I said, "You're out of order." And I said to the guys in the green blazers, "Take him down there." So they took him down there. I don't know what they did with him, but I went back to somebody had to do something. And that's what a D does. You know, we just jump into action when something has to be done. But the bad news, if you're in a relationship with a D, they tend to overdominate. They're too busy for the family. They're impatient with poor performance. Won't let children relax, tends to use people, is too independent, and can't say, can't say "I'm sorry." You're going to wait a long time for that D to apologize. For one thing, we never think we're wrong. And for another thing, we see apology as a sign of weakness. I did a marriage counseling seminar in Baton Rouge years ago, Interdenominational Faith Assembly. And Linda came with me, Saturday conference. So she gets off Friday night from the bank. She's assistant branch manager at a bank. And she comes home and she kind of dawdles around a little bit. She's an S, and then they dawdle. And I'm getting upset. I didn't tell her we had to leave at a certain time. But we wound up getting out later than I wanted to get out. And so we're riding up there, and I'm mad at her. And I know I shouldn't be mad at her, but I've got this feeling of anger. And she picked up on that, and she went to sleep. That's what S's do. They tune out. So the next day we do the seminar. And on the way back home, I said to her, "Baby, I was a little upset with you last night." She said, "Yeah, I know." And I said, "And if I wasn't a D, I'd apologize." That's about as close as we can come. They may be right, but unpopular. Winston Churchill led his people to victory in World War II. At the end of the war, he ran for public office and he lost. They voted him out of office. D's scare people. And then they tend to be possessive. Okay, if we'll scroll down a little bit, the occupational characteristics. D's on the job, they're goal-oriented. They see the whole picture. They organize well. They seek practical solutions. They move quickly to action. D's have the ability to instantly take charge of anything and make fast, accurate decisions. That's one of their strengths. They delegate work. They insist on production. They stimulate activity, and they thrive on opposition. Now, when I'm doing the profiles at a Therapon certification school, I stop at this point and I'll tell the people, I say, if you haven't realized it by now, you're going to realize when you learn this material, you learn a person's strengths and weaknesses, their greatest fears, their proclivities. You can manipulate them because knowledge is power. And I tell a story, when Linda and I lived on Deer Creek, we had a little bush growing out front and turned into a small tree. And Linda's always after me to cut down that tree. And I'm not anointed to cut down trees. So one day after church, she says, look, my parents are coming over. You need to go home and get rid of that tree. I said, okay, I'll go saw it down. She said, oh, you can't saw it. It's too big. You have to use a hatchet. Well, that's all I needed to hear. We take separate cars to church. I run home, change clothes. I'm out there with this little bitty hacksaw. I'm sweating. My muscles are cramping up. By the time Linda got home, the thing was cut in pieces out there by the garbage. And I'm standing there saying, nah, tell me what else I can't do. Now, she's too pure to have done that. But that's how you manipulate a D. Oh, yeah, you can't do that. That's too much for you. Oh, yeah, I'll show you. So we thrive on opposition. Now, the problem with a D on the job is they have a low tolerance for error. They don't analyze the details. They're bored by trivia. They're rash decision maker, rude or tactless, manipulative and demanding. The end justifies the means. Work may become his or her God, and they demand loyalty in the ranks. So these are your D temperaments. And I don't know if any of y'all feel that you could relate to that, or if that describes you. Probably not, because we're only 3% of the population. But let's go down to the I now. The characteristics of the high I. The I stands for active. No, let's go back up a little bit. Active, positive movement in an antagonistic environment. Positive movement. Now the I's are active, people-oriented. Two of the styles are active, the I's and the D's. Two of the styles are passive, the S's and the C's. What's the difference? The active styles view themselves as more powerful than their environment. The passive styles view themselves as less powerful than their environment. And this has nothing to do with strength or intelligence or anything like that. It's just a question of self-perception. The D's and the I's will do more telling and more talking. The S's and the C's, which are passive, will do more asking, and they'll be more reserved. The I is 11% of the population. They're passive, they're active, people-oriented. The I's have low expectations of themselves and low expectations of others, which means they're the most accepting group to be around. Let's take a look at these I's now. They're outgoing, optimistic, outspoken, emotional. Let's go back up a little bit. No. Go back up. There we go. Emotional, people-oriented. The greatest fear of the I is rejection, loss of social approval. The I's don't like to believe that somebody doesn't like them. They want to be liked by everybody. Now, these are wonderful people. They're enthusiastic. They are optimistic. They make wonderful salespeople, and they make wonderful evangelists. But they don't like to feel that people don't like them. They tend to be disorganized because they're idea people. They're optimistic. They're encouraging. Now, why do we do these in the certification school? We're teaching people how to counsel. And this is one of the first things we do on Thursday night. We give them the profiles. Because as a counselor, you need to learn this information. Why? Because you need to know what your strengths are so that you can pull back on those strengths when your client needs something else. In other words, the D is a rebuker, a confronter. The I is an encourager. You need to know that. Why? 1 Thessalonians 5:14 says, now we exhort you, brethren, warn the unruly and comfort the faint-hearted. Now, if you're a D, your first tendency is to warn. We just warn people. But if you're dealing with a faint-hearted person, they're not to be warned. They're to be comforted. By the same token, if you're an I, you like to comfort and encourage people. But if you're dealing with an unruly person, they don't need to be encouraged. They need to be told, look, you're cheating on your spouse. You need to stop that kind of behavior. They don't need to be encouraged. So that's why we have to learn these things. They're encouragers. Scroll down a little bit. They're the talker, influencing, enthusiastic, inducer, interest in people, emotional, and demonstrative. You remember the old Cyndi Lauper song, Girls Just Want to Have Fun? Well, I's just want to have fun. They're the fun lovers. They're the party goers. Great people to be around. All right, let's look at 3 different areas of the I. And remember, if you overuse any strength, it becomes a weakness. The general characteristics of the I. They're warm and friendly, talkative, the life of the party. They're compassionate and demonstrative, generous and sincere at heart. They have a good sense of humor, memory for stories, enthusiastic and expressive. They're good on stage. They're wide-eyed and innocent. They live in the present and have a changeable disposition. A lot of your actors and actresses are I's, the comedians especially, Robin Williams and people like that. That they just love to be the life of the party. But the problem with the I, the weaknesses of this, they're undisciplined and weak-willed, restless and naive, disorganized and unproductive, because they're always thinking ahead, wouldn't this be great, wouldn't that be great, and not paying too much attention to details. For that reason, they tend to be undependable. They're egocentric. They view things as how it relates to them. Exaggerates and compulsive talker. I use these profiles with all of my clients. I had a 16-year-old girl I was counseling, and the mother brought her to my office, dropped her off, and we did the profile. She's an I, and we see here the I's exaggerates and compulsive talker, right? So I'm reading these things to her. At the end of the session, she calls her mom to come pick her up. She said, Mom, he said I'm a compulsive liar.
Oh.
The mother said, well, I think I got to tip that session. They're fearful and insecure because they want people to like them. And then they're nervous if they think somebody doesn't like them. They dwell on trivia, much to the dismay of the D, because the D wants short, simple answers. We don't want people to repeat themselves. If you're talking to a D, the worst thing you can do is say, well, like I said, if you said it, we got it. They're decisive. Would you like a Coke? No, thank you. You sure? Don't ever ask a D if they're sure. We're not always right, but we're always sure. Oh, Coke or no Coke? I don't know. Let me pray about it. No. Take us at our word. What's the crime now? You have done the cardinal sin for the D. You have wasted our time, because now we have to answer the same question twice. A D thinks about time like a miser thinks about money. And so the I's will just sit there and just run their heads. And again, you need to know that in counseling. Because if you're the I, the tendency, you got a person in your office for an hour, the tendency is you got a captive audience. You'll talk the whole hour. You need to know to pull back and let them speak. So they dwell on trivia. They're egotistical and obnoxious, controlled by circumstances, easily angered, and seems phony to some. Why do they seem phony to some? Because the I's are idea people. Oh, wouldn't this be great? They're always conceiving this favorable environment. I's don't like antagonistic environments. They like favorable environments, and There was a mistake on the top of this where it says the eyes stand for such and such in an unfavorable or an antagonistic environment. That go back up. No, up. Keep going. Keep going.
You're getting there.
Keep going. That's all right. That's not correct. They stand for active positive movement in a favorable environment. The D's and the C's have the antagonistic environment, but it's an active positive movement in a favorable environment. I's don't like unfavorable environments, and so they'll end a relationship quicker. They'll jump the fence. They'll go to the greener pastures. Okay, let's go down. Let's deal with the I. Go down. Thank you. Keep going. Okay. The relational characteristics of the I. They're liked by the children's friends. Wait, go back up a little bit. Did we do the strengths and weaknesses of the I? Yes, okay. Seems phony to some because the I's are idea people. They say, oh, wouldn't this be great? Wouldn't that be great? So they give their ideas. Hey, let's have this ministry or this. Okay. And so now the D's and the C's who are task oriented are sitting back thinking about how we're going to do this and that. And then finally they say, okay, let's do it. And they go and they get the I, and the I's off doing something else. That's why they seem phony to some. They seem to be pretentious. Okay, let's scroll down to the relational. If you're married to an I, if you're in a relationship with an I, and if you're a C, you're probably in a relationship with an I because opposites attract. They're liked by the children's friends. They turn disaster into humor. They're the circus master. They make friends easily. They thrive on compliments. I's love to be complimented. They're envied by others. They apologize quickly. Now, if you remember, the D doesn't apologize. The I's apologize quickly because they want you to like them. The D doesn't care whether or not you like them as long as you obey them. And they like spontaneous activities. 3 o'clock in the morning, let's go to the French Quarter, get some beignets. Yeah, I'm there, man. They love that. The problem in a relationship with an I, they keep the home in a frenzy. They're disorganized and forgetful. Doesn't listen to the whole story. Needs to be center stage. The I's, if they go too far off the chart, they develop histrionic personality disorder. They want to be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral.
Wow.
Love to be center stage. They dominate conversations. It'll be hard for you to get a word in edgewise. They're fickle and they make excuses. But on the job, and this is why some people are frustrated on the job. It's not that they don't know how to do their job, but sometimes they get slotted into a position they're not temperamentally suited for. And this is the same in ministry and in church. If you've got the I, you don't stick them in the back working on the computers by themselves. You put the C's back there. They love that. The I's, you put them out front as a greeter because that's what they love. The C's in the office, they're the careful, cautious, compliant. They'll go in their office and shut the door and start doing their work. And the I's come in, open the door, sit down, start talking to them. Drives them up a wall. On the job, they volunteer for jobs. They think up new activities. They look great on the surface. They're creative and colorful. They have energy and enthusiasm. Can we go down a little more?
Surely.
Okay. Oh, okay, yeah. Scares others off, starts in a flashy way, inspires others to join, and charms others to work. They're very good at talking people into things. How do the 4 styles get other people to do things? The D will order you to do it or else. The I will try and talk you into it. The S will appeal to your relationship because we have a relationship. And the C, that C will give you tons and tons of data and websites and information because they're into that sort of thing. Okay, we'll go back up a little bit. On my copy, we straighten this out. On the job, the I's would rather talk than work. They forget obligations. They don't follow through. See, that D will follow through and the C will follow through, but the I's, their confidence fades fast. They're undisciplined. Let's go down a little bit. Priorities are out of order, decides by feelings, easily distracted, and waste time talking. So you have to watch that if you're an I. So how does that fit? Does anybody here feel maybe that's me? Yay, nay? Jenna?
I think I'm a balance between D and I.
Yeah, well, all of us have the four traits. That's why we call it a high D. That would be your highest point on the chart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the S.
Okay.
Let's scroll down. The S's are 69% of the population.
Wow.
That means they're 3 times as much as all the other styles put together. They're 69% of the population. S's are passive, people-oriented. Passive, people-oriented. They have low expectations of others, but high expectations of themselves. They're the opposite of the D. The D is active, task-oriented. The S's are passive, people-oriented. The D's have high expectations of others and low expectations of themselves. The S's have low expectations of others and high expectations of themselves. For that reason, they're more prone to depression. S's beat themselves up a lot. They're always second-guessing themselves. They're the introvert, the watcher, the pessimist, loyal, gentle team player. They're a person of substance, family-oriented, displays high level of trust. Now, the greatest fear of the S is the loss of security. S's will stay in a bad relationship longer if it offers some type of stability. I's will break and run, but not the S's. They'll stay if it offers some type of security. They're possessive. They resist change and adapt slowly. S's don't like change, and they don't like conflict. They avoid conflict, sometimes at all costs. There's another couple in the church, Lynn and Robert. He's one of our elders. In my relationship, I'm the D and Linda's the S. But with Lynn and Robert, he's the S and she's the D. You get the idea? So the 4 of us go out to eat at Outback one night, and Robert's telling us a story where he's having some issues with a person. And when he finished his story, I said, you need to confront that guy. And his wife, Lynn, says, you need to confront him. And Robert says, nah, I'm just going to let it go. And my wife says, yeah, just let it go. So we were neatly divided along the party lines. Okay, let's scroll down. They're the loyal peacemaker, sympathetic, quiet, steady, stable, maintains the status quo, competent, and easygoing. I don't know where our churches would be without the S's. They just show up and get it done. Wonderful. They don't care who gets the credit. Wonderful people. Let's scroll down. Okay, here we are, the S's. General characteristics. They're likable and diplomatic, efficient and organized, dependable, conservative and practical. They make reluctant leaders. I told you my wife's the assistant branch manager. They approached her about becoming a manager of the branch. And I'd already coached her what to say. I said, look, if they offer you this job, tell them you'll walk through any door they open. Well, she tells them that, yeah, I'll walk through any door you open, but I'm really happy being number 2. They gave the promotion to somebody she had trained, and she's happy with that. She's okay with supporting other people. Man, I'd have grabbed that job in a second, man. Give me that money. They make reluctant leaders. They have low-key personality, easygoing and relaxed, patient and well-balanced. They're quiet but witty, sympathetic and kind. They keep the emotions hidden. What do the letters measure? The D measures the attitude, the emotion of anger. The higher the D on the chart, when we do the profiles, you get a little chart. The higher the D, the higher the anger component. The I measures the attitude of optimism. The higher the I, the more optimistic they are. The S measures the attitude of apathy, which is a lack of emotion. And part of that has to do with the fact that S's are prone to depression. So they tend to be somewhat pessimistic, lack of emotion. The C measures the attitude of fear. The higher the C, the higher the fear component. Okay, they're happily reconciled to life. But the weakness of the S style, they're unmotivated and blasé. They take things too easy. They're spectator, selfish and stubborn and stingy, self-protective, indecisive and fearful. S's don't like to make decisions. Neither do C's for that matter. The C's agonize over making decisions, but S's don't like to make decisions. We were at Chuck E. Cheese one night, group of us, and I'm ordering, and so I turned to my S-wife. Baby, what do you want? It doesn't matter. I said, okay, I'd like a large pepperoni, a pitcher of root beer, and a small, it doesn't matter. Being silly with it, you know. But, you know, D's like to think they're self-sufficient. So we're going on a road trip, going to Dallas or somewhere. And Linda says to me, do you want me to drive? And I look at her. I said, baby, if I wanted you to drive, what would I say? You know, because we like to be self-sufficient. Well, I would have said, would you like to drive? And this is what she says to me. She said, okay, David, you're a D. You like to be self-sufficient. That's your nature. I'm an S. It's my nature to be helpful. Why should your personality overrule mine? Busted.
I don't have those problems.
Oh, we're going to get to you next, Jack. You just sit tight, put your seatbelt on, because you're next. So, and of course she was right about that. So now I don't say it anymore. If she offers to drive, I'll just say, no, it still aggravates me, but I don't say anything about it. They're unenthusiastic, reticent, avoids responsibility, quiet will of iron, too compromising, and self-righteous. Let's go down to the relational characteristics. If you're an S, if you're lucky, you married a D. I don't know. Because there's 23 times more D's than S's. I'm 23 times more S's than D's. Every D is married to an S. But sometimes the S's have to settle because there's not enough of these to go around, okay? They make a good parent. They're not in a hurry. Don't we know it? They can take the good with the bad. They don't get upset easily. They're pleasant and enjoyable. They're a good listener. They make excellent counselors. You know why? They listen. The D's will listen long enough to find out what your problem is, usually about a minute and a half. And then they'll say, okay, here's what you need to do. Boom, next. The I's won't listen because they'll be talking the whole session. But the S's listen. Then they have a dry sense of humor and several close friends. But if you're married to an S, you're in a relationship with an S, know this, they're going to be undisciplined and unchangeable. They don't like changes. Doesn't organize the home, takes life too easy, dampens enthusiasm. S's tend to be pessimistic. Oh, let's go over here to this new restaurant. Oh, they're probably too crowded. You know, they may be too crowded. But why do you verbalize that? Now, if you don't want to go, that's one thing. But they may be too crowded, but let's go. No. Keep quiet. Don't be pessimistic. Because S's tend to drag people down when they do that. They stay uninvolved, indifferent to plans, judges others, sarcastic and teasing. Okay, on the job. They're competent and steady. They're peaceful and agreeable. They have administrative ability and they mediate problems. All four of the styles can be managers, but they're going to manage in different ways. If the D is a manager and two employees are having a problem, the D wants to know one thing. Who's wrong? Get rid of the offender, problem solved. But if the S is the manager and two employees are having a problem, you know what that S wants to do? They want to sit down with the two employees and work the problem out. They can all manage, they're just going to manage in different ways. They avoid conflicts, they're good under pressure, they find the easy way. How do the styles want things done? The D wants it done the fastest way possible. The I, the funnest way. The S, the easiest way. And the C's, Jack?
That's me.
The most correct way. It's got to be right. That's all they're worried about. Doesn't matter if it's fast, fun, or easy. It's got to be right. All right. They're not goal-oriented. Here's the problem on the job. They lack self-motivation. They're hard to get moving, yet they resent being pushed. Now, my thinking is if you resent being pushed, then get moving. Lethargic and careless, discourages others, and they can be an observer. Those are our S's. I don't know how much you can relate to that. I wish I could give all of you the profile right now, but I can't. All right. Let's do our final one here, the C. Now you're going to go back to the top for this one because Tina put them in alphabetical order. All right. The characteristics of the high C. C's are 17% of the population. They are passive, task-oriented. They have high expectations of others and high expectations of themselves, which means the C's are most prone to depression because we live in an imperfect world, and the C's cannot adjust to that fact. So the C's, being passive, they have cautious, tentative response designed to reduce antagonistic factors in an unfavorable environment. They're introverted, pessimistic, and soft-spoken. They're perfectionists according to their own standard. These people invented the ideas of rule keeping, all right? But sensitive, their feelings are hurt easily. The greatest fear of the C is criticism. That's why they try to do everything just right. They don't want to be criticized. Or changes in circumstances or conditions. So if you want to have fun with that C, you're working in the office, come running in one morning and say, did y'all get the memo? There's going to be a lot of changes and they happen real quick. And boy, that C is going to sit back like that. The D will say, it's about time. They're accurate. They want to know all the backgrounds and details. Several of my secretaries have been C's, and they're good secretaries, but they drive me up the wall. They need many explanations, and they ask many questions. They're the thinker. They're controlled, analytic, compliant, competent, conscientious, and talented. Okay, let's go down to the behavioral tendencies. General characteristics. The C is analytical and idealistic. They're very intelligent people. Perfectionistic and conscientious. They're loyal, sensitive, self-sacrificing, and self-disciplined. The C is going to be hard on you, but they're going to be just as hard on themselves. They're serious and purposeful, genius prone. You're talking Albert Einstein, people like that, they're the C's. Talented and creative, artistic or musically gifted. And when I'm doing the profiles, I'll say to the C's, you know, everybody raise their hand up there, C. I'll say, what instrument do you play? Or do you work with computers, or you're an accountant? Now, the reason is this. The musical scale is mathematical. And of course, being a CPA or a computer programmer, you're working with mathematics. Mathematics is the only place in the universe you find perfection. There's one right answer, and everything else is wrong. That's very appealing to the C. They want that. So they're artistic or musically gifted, philosophical and poetic, and appreciative of beauty. But the weaknesses with the C, oh my, they tend to be moody and negative, critical, rigid and legalistic, self-centered and touchy, revengeful, persecution-prone, unsociable. They're not sociable. Theoretical and impractical. They have false humility. They have selective hearing, introspective, and has low self-esteem, and a tendency toward hypochondria. Now, low self-esteem, they dress so well, they're intelligent, but that doesn't tell you what's going on the inside of their mind. it may be that one of the reasons they're doing that is because they have low self-esteem. Okay, let's go to the relational characteristics. Let's go to occupational. We just finished. Relational. That's okay. There we go. Relational. They set high standards. They want everything done right. They pick up after children. I was doing marriage counseling with a couple. He's the I and she's the C. All right. And she's sitting there complaining. He comes home, he takes off his clothes, he throws his clothes on the ground. I say, look, they don't belong on the ground. They belong in a hamper. She's the C. Everything's got to be in order. Well, he's the I. So I look at him. Well, you know, I come home from work and I'm tired and I take my clothes off. I'm going to put them up later. All right. So I look at her. I said, you know, if he was more like you, fastidious and wanting everything in order, this wouldn't be a problem, would it? She said, no. She took the bait. I said, but if you were more like him, and it doesn't matter if his clothes on the ground for a little while, that wouldn't be a problem either. See, everybody wants the other one to change. All right. So they make friends, sacrifices their own will, encourages scholarship and talent, makes friends cautiously. You fill out an application, they'll get back to you. They're content to stay in the background, and they avoid causing attention. Now, the weaknesses in a relationship with the C, they have unrealistic goals. They're too meticulous. Now, I'm not going to mention Jack's name because I don't want to embarrass him here, but that work he does as an editor. I mean, I send my manuscript off and it comes back. He's got more writing than I do. But that's what you want. That's the strength of these people. That's exactly the way that you want it. They make up a lot of rules, but they've saved lives. They've kept companies from losing a lot of money. They all have strengths and weaknesses, but they become a martyr and so. They live through others, socially insecure, critical and unforgiving, and they hold back affection. And so I tell the people in the schools, I said, you know, with that legalistic mindset, affection is something that has to be earned. And if you didn't earn it, you're not getting it. And they tend to be antagonistic and vengeful. All right, occupational characteristics of the C. They're schedule-oriented. They're perfectionists and have high standards. Detail-oriented, persistent and thorough, orderly and organized. They're economical. They see the problem. They find creative solutions. And they need to finish what they start. My former secretary, who was a C, you know, she'd be on a computer and I'd great for Bill over there. She wouldn't even answer me. She'd finish it and then she'd turn around. What did you want? They have to finish what they started. They like charts, graphs, figures, Palm Pilots, all of that sort of, that's their milieu. Sometimes I'll have somebody out to fix the soundboard. This guy was a C. And so I'll go out there and say, did you fix it? He said, yeah, the problem was your amperage was too high over here. And the conductor and I said, whoa, I don't know all of that. I want to know two things. Can you fix it? How much is it going to cost? They love to over-explain. They're the kind of people where if you ask them what time it is, they're going to tell you how to build a watch. Now, I mean, that's what they're into, these details. But the weakness on the job is they're not people-oriented. They're depressed over imperfections. They choose difficult work. They're hesitant to start projects because you've heard of the 3 Ps. Perfectionism leads to procrastination, which leads to paralysis. They don't want to do it unless they can do it perfectly. They spend too much time planning. They prefer analysis to work. They're self-deprecating. They're hard to please. They set unrealistic standards, and they have a deep need for approval. Now, I know that I've rushed through these things for the sake of time. And I wish I had given you all a profile because these things are super accurate. they come in 3 different areas: your public self, your private self, your perceived self. I use them with all of my clients. But this was just a general understanding of the 4 personality types, and I hope that somewhere in here you were able to see what you might be drawn to. The
I
last
think
thing,
it's a mixture of some. I see me in a little bit of all of these.
Jack, you're a C, man. Don't live in denial.
I'm not
You're
a
an I
pessimist,
see.
I know that. for a fact.
Well, all of us have some of these. It's just, that's what the chart does. It shows you, according to your answers, how high the different letters are.
Right.
All of us have all of these things. Absolutely. I had another document. I wanted to close out by showing you what to do. If you're a C, here's how you write. If you're a D, here's what to do. These are only recommendations. This is not the law from Sinai, okay? So don't say, if you get into your writing and say, oh, I can't do this because David said, no. These are recommendations. Some of these have to do with the content of your writing, and some of them have to do with the process of writing, dealing with editors and publishers and promoting your book. All right, if you're high D, 4 things. We have 4 for each categories. Do these things. Spend time adding human interest to stories, because that's not appealing to the D. We don't care about stuff like that. So, but other people do. The vast majority of people do. I wish I had known these things about myself when I started the church, because being 3% of the population, I assumed that the people coming to my church liked what I liked and didn't like what I didn't like, and I got fooled every time. I've learned a lot since then. Spend time adding human interest to your stories. Inject a friendly tone into your writing. All right. If you're taking notes, I'll give you this real quick. This is how you can determine what type of personality you're dealing with. Extroverted plus direct equals D. If you have an extroverted individual who's direct, they're a D. Extroverted plus friendly is an I. If they're extroverted and they're friendly, they're an I. Introverted, now we're going down to the next two. Introverted and friendly, you're dealing with an S.
Can you scroll on yours, David, so we can see? Because I'm only seeing
I don't
high
have
E
that
and
written
high
down.
I. Huh?
I don't have that written down.
Oh, it's not, okay.
I'm just giving it to you off the cuff.
Okay.
Introverted and cooperative. I said that wrong. Introverted and cooperative is an S. Introverted and reserved, you're dealing with a C. Okay. If you're high D, focus more on details, because we generally leave that to other people. We're bored by trivia, but other people are not. And I have to learn that other people are not like me. And also, if you're high D, extend dialogue when necessary. D's like short, accurate stuff. I used to play golf with a friend of mine who was managing another Shakey's Pizza Parlor when I was a manager of my Shakey's on the West Bank. We played golf a lot. This was a conversation. You ready for this? The phone rang. One of my employees called me over. Mr. David, it's for you. This is the entire conversation. You ready? Hello? 3 o'clock. Right. Boom. And at 3 o'clock, we met at Breakdown Park to play golf. That's a D. Cut straight to the point. Most people are not like that. So when you're writing, extend the dialogue when it's necessary. Now, here's what you don't want to do when you're writing. Don't be combative. Don't lecture or talk down. We're very sarcastic with people sometimes. Don't assume that others will get it. You may have to take a little more time to. These are quick on the uptake. We get it pretty quickly. Others may not. And don't eliminate repetition. because as a D, that's one of the things we don't like repetition. But you know, they say when you're giving a talk, tell people what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them that you've told them. The D will kind of cut corners. Don't eliminate repetition. All right, if you're a high I, focus more on facts, because I's tend to go by feelings. Focus more on facts. Be more realistic and less idealistic. Always conceiving the greener pastures. Wouldn't this be great? And that would be great. You got to kind of balance yourself in the opposite area of your strengths. Avoid exaggeration. Now, I've got a sister. She's my older sister. She's not the oldest one, but she's my older sister. And my oldest sister, who's in our church, Diane, once said to my younger sister, who I think is a histrionic, she said, "You always exaggerate." And my other sister said, "No, you exaggerate, I lie." To avoid exaggerating and be organized in your writing, because organization is not the strong point of the I. Now, don't overextend conversation. Now, the D has to flesh them out, but the I's, you're going to want to put in a lot of dialogue. Be careful about that. Don't overlook any necessary negatives. I's don't like to talk about negatives. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But sometimes that might be necessary to your plot, things like that. So sometimes it's necessary to hear about negatives so you can deal with them. Don't be distracted from your task. That's a big problem with the I's. They tend to wander off. Whatever's fun at the moment, that's what they want to do. Discipline yourself to sit down and get that writing done. And don't renege on your commitments. Keep your word. I sometimes have a problem doing that. Now, if you are a high S, be decisive. Be decisive. Sometimes you have to learn to take a stand. Sometimes you'll have to look that editor in the face and say, "But I think a passive verb works well here, Jack."
What was that?
You made me change my first sentence of my book.
Oh,
The first question in the book of Job was asked by God. No, it's a passive verb. In my second edition, I might have to go back. But anyway, be decisive and express excitement and enthusiasm. This is something S's are not normally do. If you're married to an S, don't take it personally. "Honey, when are we going to go away on a romantic getaway?" Whenever. Don't take it personal. That's part of their nature. They're just not as excited.
this is explaining a friend of mine. I'm glad you're doing this. I couldn't figure him out. Maybe I can.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Faces are going to come to your mind. I wish
Yeah.
we had given you all the profiles. All right. Work on self-motivation. Remember, S's are hard to get moving. Work on self-motivation and be open to change. That's another. S's don't like change any more than C's do, but be open to change. If you're writing in a certain style or if you're doing things a certain way, listen to other people and be open to doing it differently. Don't, if you're an S, don't feel overwhelmed by the task of writing, because S's put a lot of pressure on themselves and they feel a lot like they're overwhelmed at times and nobody wants to help. Look, you're creating, you're doing something. Don't feel overwhelmed. Don't be intimidated by editors or publishers. Remember, S's are passive people oriented. They view themselves as less powerful in their environment, and there are people out there, particularly those D's, not me, but the other D's, that will try to intimidate you to get their way. Stand up to them. Don't undervalue your work. That's another problem that S's have. Oh, nobody wants to read this. Nobody's going to be interested in it. Don't do that to yourself. That's a tendency of the S. And don't avoid responsibility. You are left holding the bag oftentimes. So you have to take responsibility for your work. If you're high C, strive for excellence, not perfection. You'll never find that perfection. George Lucas creates the Star Wars trilogy, the first Star Wars trilogy, shatters box office records. What does he do 20 years later? He goes back to episode 4, A New Hope, the first one in the series, and tinkers with it. He's got some new technology, and now you can see the sand speeders. He erases the blur underneath them, and you see Han Solo stepping over the tail of Jabba the Hutt. What is that? What is that? A director once said, a movie is never finished, it's abandoned. You can always find something to tweak about it, but C's need to learn it's good enough. Sometimes good enough is good enough. Also, if you're a high C, inject warmth into your writing, because the C's have a tendency to be calculating and cold sometimes. Inject some warmth into your writing. Be more forthcoming and direct. Remember, the C, you're looking for introverted plus reserved. That's a C. So the C's have to be more forthcoming and direct, because C's don't like to make decisions. They agonize over making a decision. Now, once they make that decision, they'll stick with it. But they agonize over having to make a decision and become more sociable. So if you're at the book signing, you're having a book promotion, the tendency of the C would be to sit there on their Palm Pilot on their cell phone and texting or something. Don't do that. Work the room. Go around, shake hands, pat people on the back. It won't be easy for you, but it'll be beneficial. Don't be obsessed with details. Don't put in too many details. That's what some of these people try to do to me when they're explaining about the sound system or the computer, and then it's, oh man, I'm not interested in all. Don't procrastinate. That's a problem with the C. Remember, perfectionism leads to procrastination, which can lead to paralysis. Don't over-explain. The tendency of the C, since they're interested in information, they tend to assume that other people, and you ask them what time it is, and they're going to tell you how to build a watch. Right? And don't have unrealistic expectations of others. That's another problem that the C's have. They think everybody is as fastidious as they are, and they need to pull it back a few notches. So those are just some explanations. And I know we've gone a little bit over time, but I appreciate it.
No, not really. We're good.
Okay, so I got 2 more hours. All right.
Well, if you're done, we usually have a question and an answer.
Yeah, I'm done.
Then I'm going to ask the first question here.
Yeah.
If somebody wanted to take this test to find out exactly what they are, how would they go about that, David?
Well, I guess they can make an appointment with me. The profile itself is $22, but you get to keep it. And in that book, it's I don't know, 20-something pages. It gives everything that we've had up on the screen, and it gives strengths and weaknesses. And I can read your chart. I can look at your chart and pretty much know a lot of things about you that maybe you didn't know yourself. In fact, I was doing this in Baton Rouge, and I looked at this lady's chart, and I said, do you have a job where you have to talk a lot? She said, I'm a school teacher. I said, but when you get home, you don't talk so much. She said, I don't open my mouth. How'd you know all of that? But in a public self, her I was very high, but in a perceived self, it was very low. I've had some people think that the Lord was speaking through me. Brother, the Lord is speaking. I said, no, this is not a gift of the Spirit. This is just cause and effect here. So if you call me and we can make an appointment for that.
Well, give them the church phone number, David, if they want to jot that down, maybe get in touch with you. And
yeah, okay, 504-347-4875.